Recently I heard from a credit union who came into the network, and what they said is in the highly competitive financial institution market, the FIs that have instant payments will be more attractive to the next generation of customers that expect everything instantly. And I thought that it encapsulated so much about choices that financial institutions are making coming into the network and how they are engaging with their members and customers. Joining me today is Rebecca Weifenbach. Welcome and thanks so much for being here. Before we jump into our chat, let's start with getting to know you a little bit. In your role, you oversee the digital aspects of Credit Union of Colorado. Can you tell us more about yourself and your role?
Yes, Rebecca Weifenbach. I've worked at the credit union for just over 21 years. I am a senior digital services analyst. And most recently, I've been in the digital team for about 5 years. We are Colorado based. We have over 160,000 members, and we have really high digital adoption. So, member focused, unique, personalized experiences is really what we're aiming for within our digital platform.
Mhm. That's excellent. So, tell us a little bit about your membership. You've talked about that they're pretty digitally savvy. What pushed you to join instant payments? And I think with FedNow, you started with the ability to move funds between like my account, so me to me transactions. How did those choices reflect in the everyday needs of your members?
Yes, we started with Receive, really to meet the needs of our payroll, our gig workers, people getting tax payouts, just, that speed. And then we did turn on Send, and that's really where our members get to experience it. We have a huge amount of members that really like to transfer to their family members, their college kids. We also have a lot of people that like to pay their rent electronically. With the cost of rent and everything in Colorado exceeding, we really needed that channel where we could meet that need. A lot of our members actually get paid the same day that their rent is due, so that instant payment was really, really helpful for them.
Oh, that's such an interesting use that you did. You made some observation about your member activity, about when they're getting paid, and then when their bills are due, to really see and identify a simple use case, paying my rent, to create a really compelling experience for your members. I love that. As you launched and came into Send, what did you learn about enabling Send in addition to receiving transactions? Where did you see the biggest member impact?
Really around that me to me transfers and the paying of their rent. Um, Specifically, we saw a lot of our members really testing it out. They would go in and they would see the instant payment button and, oh, that you would see them send a small amount and then, oh, I can actually do this. And it really did go instantly. And then we would see them transfer larger amounts. So that's really we're seeing that digital adoption as that I'm transferring to my spouse or I'm transferring to my kid, even at another financial institution, those type of things.
I know that all too well. As we have been talking, you were sharing what an emphasis you've put in on your member experience. And that has come to fruition not only in the user interface, but also in the controls that you have. And indeed, you've done something I think is quite interesting and maybe even revolutionary, a high degree of transparency into how you're setting dynamic limits, new payee protections, and clear member transparency. Can you tell us how this is shaping your member experience?
Yes, absolutely. So we do have both fraud rules in place and dynamic limits in place. So it is an initiative that we started about a year before we decided to begin our journey within instant payments, and that was intentional. So a couple different things. For one, if a member is performing a transaction, we have a brain behind it that looks at behavior data, transaction data, um, where the member's money is sending, and we determine, do we need additional authentication to get this transaction to go through? Is it okay to go through as it is? And then separate to that, how much money are we willing to let go out with this? What is the limit that's determined, right? And for some of our members, they're excellent members. They have years of history of higher dollar amounts, and we want them to be able to move the money that they need to move in that transaction. That same member could have a bad actor in place and all of a sudden it doesn't look like them. And so we want to protect that member. We want to put those high risk tiers in. We want to put those cool off tiers in so that if their behavior looks different than what they've been doing, we can catch that. We can still let them do the transaction, but we can make sure that we're mitigating the risk on that. So we do have that in place. And the beautiful thing is we worked with some really great vendors and we have some great vendors in place where we have control over that. So if tomorrow we see a new fraud ring that is come into town, we can take a look, we can make adjustments, we can make adjustments not just to our fraud rules, but maybe even to the limits that we're offering based off whatever that scenario is, so that we can still make it as frictionless as possible for our members to be able to send their money.
Mhm. I love that, and I think, one of the things that you were sharing with me earlier was that you try to keep them in the payment rail of choice, right? You're letting the member choose the path that they want to go in, maybe the timing or efficiency of the payment, but at the same time, you're able to give them some transparency around what they're able to do, and I think that transparency aspect of it is quite interesting to see. I wonder if you could share a little bit more about your member reaction to this new experience with your digital interfaces?
We have gotten really great member feedback, right? Our surveys are really telling us this, our members are telling this, our employees are telling us this. Anybody loves to be able to move their money quickly, but even our members who have had an experience where maybe they couldn't move as much as they wanted in this particular transaction because it is a newer payee or whatever that looks like, they appreciate they can move something. They also appreciate the transparency around it, and they appreciate that we're here to protect them in their finances. As you know, with this channel, money moves instantly. You can't get it back. It's the same as cash. And it doesn't feel like cash when you're spending it. So you really have to put that fraud in place to protect everybody involved in that transaction. And that's really what we've worked towards.
Mhm. And I also like that you not only looked at your member pattern of behavior, but you're also looking at the full transaction. What's happening here on both sides of this equation, and does that make sense to help support? What needs to happen here? Like it might be a new payee, it might be other things that are suggesting to you that this is maybe something that needs a little bit extra attention.
Absolutely.
Nice. All right. So, are you've started out with me to me, and I love that rent payment. I think that's so compelling, and being able to move funds between your own accounts and sending out to friends and family. What's next? What's next for Credit Union of Colorado? Where are you looking at moving forward to?
We're really exploring access, right? How can our members access this easily? It's not as member friendly to be like, "Hey, Stephanie, can you give me your routing number and your account number so that I can transfer you some money?" That just doesn't quite feel right. So how are we going to enable something so that our members can do those person to person transfers and in a cleaner, easier way? So things we're exploring, even that potential of the QR code, all of these things are something that we're just looking into to see what our next step is. Opening up access to our business users. How can they use this for payroll? Those are the types of things that we're going to really be looking into. Also, the ability to pay some of our vendor partners quicker. We have our indirect lending platform. We certainly want to be able to pay our dealers quicker. Everybody likes to get paid quicker. So looking at all of these different ways of how can we do this and how can we be the best in the business at building these relationships and helping our vendors have a good relationship and our members have a good relationship.
I love that because what I heard you saying is here's some problems we need to solve, right? So even as you're talking about a P2P, sharing RTN and account number, it doesn't feel as comfortable, but you're like, how can we solve this problem? And the QR codes is certainly a fascinating area that's coming up in the marketplace. So that is exciting. And then also, hearing like, oh, hey, where can we enable? What does it make sense to enable faster money movement with your businesses and being able to fund payroll or even doing payroll disbursements or those indirect loans? If I buy a new vehicle, how great is it to get paid before my customer peels out of the parking lot in their new vehicle? That's such a compelling story. So I think that that's pretty smart to look at where are the friction points, where are the opportunities, and how can we present their experience for your members. So that's pretty exciting. I wonder if you had any lessons learned, or maybe things that you thought were going to be a big deal and it turns out not so much. Any words of wisdom for other financial institutions coming into the network?
It was a pretty seamless transition. I think really the biggest thing is just getting your fraud in place beforehand. Right, really determining your strategy, your risk appetite, all of those things, because without that foundation that we built, we would not have had that same success. We would have been reliant on others for rules and all of those type of things when we had a really strong foundation of what we wanted to allow, how we wanted to do this, and how we wanted to best set up our members and in our organization. So I think that's the biggest thing is kind of vet all of that out before you go into this and make sure that you're ready for it because you're bound to get some new challenge as soon as you open the door, and making sure you have the right tools in place to be able to mitigate that and handle that challenge is really what the best experience that I can offer.
Maybe one final area here. Are you looking at how you talk to your members and telling them about their abilities to use instant payments? Like, how did you go to market?
We actually didn't do any marketing around it.
Oh,
Um, and that was just it was a choice. Now our digital banking platform does market it itself. If you go to RK Transferring, you can see instant payment and it is very noticeable. We also have another opportunity where if you are doing a standard external transfer and that financial institution was available for instant payment, it gives you the opportunity to make a switch right there mid transaction. So that's really what we did. We didn't really go tell the world that we were doing it, and we had pretty quick adoption.
oh, that's excellent. I would love to see that. Is that something that you can show us?
I would love to.
Excellent. Well, Rebecca, it has been our pleasure to get to connect with you today. I appreciate you taking the time to share your experience about the FedNow service and the value of instant payments for Credit Union of Colorado members. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Stephanie. It was a pleasure.